I'm here with the lovely, talented, and brilliant, angelic Diana Friedell. Diana is a very close dear friend of mine and is the co-founder, and pastor of the Institute for Spiritual Development in Oneonta, New York, which we'll talk about a little bit further as it's one of many chapters on the East Coast. And Diana is also the owner of her own business, intuitive counseling business called Tuning In and Tuning Up. And she is the founder and operator of the very popular Shift in New York, which is a spiritual arts fair in New York that's been going for many, many years. So, Diana, welcome to my podcast on That of Love. And thank you so
Yeah.
much for coming to talk with me today. Your insights and your legacy of your divine mission is so powerful, and I just really wanted people to hear more about it and to learn from your everlasting wisdom and love. So
Thank you
before
so
we
much, Amanda.
Yeah, you're welcome. Before we get started, if you would like to just kind of talk a little bit about your life mission and how you got to this place with your gifts and your divine service. And for those that don't know Diana, she's very humble, and she is very, very good at creating resources within individuals, supporting individuals with resources, as well as creating whole programs. And she created a whole organization to support direct divine connection for people, which is so beautiful and is going to last for generations. Your legacy, it's really, really amazing. So if you could just start by letting us know kind of about your life mission and how you got to this point with all these wonderful gifts that you give to others,
Yeah.
and your story a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I grew up without really any understanding that I had any talent to connect at all. No really intuition that I was aware of. And I even did a test, one time that my sister Sue was doing, one of those tests where you have to guess what the symbol is. And I got like zero, as a young teenager. So I wasn't really aware of having any particular psychic gift way back then. And I I've been a teacher. I was trained as a teacher, and I love acting and directing. So a lot of community theater background with me, and also directing in high school shows. When I married my husband Ben, who's a doctor and very, very into the science. It's very, if it's not in the journals, he doesn't want to hear about it. So I've had that kind of back and forth with him as I went down more of a spiritual path. When my youngest son passed away very suddenly in 2000, no, I'm sorry, we're going back. This is now 1995. He passed away, 1994, 1995, when he was 5 years old. And it was completely unexpected and out of the blue. And he was hit by a truck when he was sledding. We, in the process of trying to clear all of that confusion and all of the grief going on, and for my other two boys, I started kind of a search. I wanted to support them and make sure they were okay through this, and I needed to understand where Jamie went. I didn't really have a lot of beliefs about the afterlife at all, and I I found originally George Anderson, who was the medium, the Long Island medium at the time, and eventually, after trying, got an appointment with him. And that, when I finally got the appointment, I brought my husband, I brought my other two boys. It was a workshop for bereaved parents, specifically, that and randomly, actually very randomly, the date of our reading with him was the exact anniversary of Jamie's passing, and that it was a year to the date. And it just was like
And that wasn't
They
planned.
assign you. They assign you. At that
Yeah.
time, you didn't even.
Wow.
There wasn't even the internet yet. Um, they assign you a time and a date, and this is what they assigned me. So I thought that was really an amazing sign. Um, I I eventually met Elaine Thomas, the founder of Fellowships of the Spirit in Lilydale, New York. Um, I I didn't know about Lilydale. It's kind of, they always say it's like a secret until
I
you,
didn't either. Yeah, until
until
you.
you
Yeah.
start searching. And because I was on a search, um, when I found out that George Anderson was real and this mediumship stuff was real, and he hit on things that were just incredible for me, and for my husband, the kind of doesn't believe in this stuff kind of guy. He was extremely impressed. And so away we go. That kind of started, and I did a whole lot of reading, just everything that I could get my hands on. It was so helpful to me as a parent to read like George Anderson's book about Our Children Forever,
Mhm.
and to hear stories of mediums connecting authentically with the spirit of the deceased child was just so helpful to me and give me confidence to know that Jamie still was going on in some other dimension, but he's still around. And so I was always looking for evidence. The I never thought that I would get into doing this stuff.
And you're one of the
Um,
best
yeah,
now.
I never thought in a million years. Um, I did a course with Elaine Thomas when she was at Omega called Spiritual Insight Training. And that's, where I realized, like, right away, when she asked us to do, okay, now you're going to turn to your neighbor and give a message, and you're like, what? I'm going to do that? Like, I thought I was just here to learn about it, and it was kind of a surprise. And, like, sure enough, I I got things right from the beginning, from the very beginning. Once you learn how to meditate, that was the whole beginning of it. And I I started to, the way it kind of works is, I turned to my neighbor in our little practice group and I said, well, I'm seeing stairs. I'm seeing like very, very steep stairs. Does that mean anything to you? Like, how, I don't know. Seeing very, very steep stairs. What does that mean? Um, and I kept hearing 12-step program, 12-step program, 12-step program. And I'm like doubting, because I was like, I wasn't I'm making that up. And so, the person who's coaching us says, what else? What else do you get from that image? Well, are you in a 12-step program? And her face went white and she said, yes, I am. And you wouldn't expect it. I thought it was because she was in college and, like, I kept getting more and more with that one image. Like, okay, so you're on you're on steps. Like, these are very, very, very steep steps, is what I was saying. The steepest steps I know, and which is at Hartwick College, very steep steps up to the library. There's somebody on the same level as you who is sharing all your books and your heavy load back and forth. So then it's like, okay, well, if you were to make a message out of that, how does that, you know, um, and it took me till much later. I think I was going home and I was like, oh, the whole message was there. Duh. I was driving home and I was like, oh, you're in a 12-step program. You're about halfway through, judging by those steps where she was, and you have a very heavy load, but you have someone who is helping you along the way. Probably her sponsor, when I learned more about 12-step programs later. And a message is always supposed to be encouraging. And look at you, you're halfway through. It seems really hard, but you're doing great and you're going to get there. Stay the course. So that was kind of about that.
And what beautiful validation to be able to give that to somebody who's doing all this hard work and nobody sees it and they don't maybe not have anybody to talk to about it. And you give them that and you start that connection like, wow, that validation was so important for me, and it's going to help me move forward with it even more. So I'm going to go back for just a minute, and then I'll
Hmm.
try to remember where we were when we left off. But
Yeah.
go back for just a minute, because you were one of the people who trained me on how to do this so well. On when you say you got the image of the steps, how does somebody get an image? Like, how does that whole process come into play from being never being having received a psychic message before to then having that moment where they're receiving an image?
Yeah, I learned in the spiritualist tradition right from the beginning, and that's what I teach, and will be teaching again for people who are just starting out, and people who maybe or already have a little practice with this. But you set your intention. You go into the little meditative space, so you're kind of in that alpha state of awareness where you're connecting. You feel like you're connecting, larger self connecting to source energy. You just have that feeling of that lovely feeling you get to in meditation. And then you state your intention. I learned to state a prayer, and so I have a habit of saying a prayer that opens the space. It tells your spirit guides we're open. I'm ready to work with you right now. And I am now an open channel, open and ready to receive anything. And you state your intention that would help so-and-so on their life path at this time. Um, um, I have a specific prayer that I say that I learned at Lilydale, so that's where my mind is going. So the prayer kind of opens the space, opens the door, and then my intention is for my client, Scott, or whoever it is, to receive a message for that would help them to provide more clarity on their life path, more joy, more sense of being guided, and amen. Make me a good instrument at this moment as I open to higher forces at work, and open to connect. So that's kind of how I open, and then immediately I start getting images with my eyes closed that pertain to their life. That's the way I start. So I check in with what I'm hearing, with what I'm seeing. You learn after a while to identify, well, what is that image? For me, that I learned even that very first weekend, the image for me, how does it come in for you? For different people, it's different, but for me, I would get an image that was sort of black and white, and sometimes in a negative of the black and white. So I'm like, okay, I'm looking at,
Me
and
too.
that
Yeah.
wasn't there a moment ago. That image
Hmm.
wasn't there a moment ago. So quite often it's a metaphor for what needs to be said.
Yeah. I
And
was
there's
working in the school and teaching. We were doing like mindfulness, wellness at the end of the day for teachers, and I was teaching meditation and really just that calming and clearing the mind. Like you said, you really need to be in a state of alpha or theta to receive images. And until we get that beta, get out of beta, the monkey mind, the everyday mind where we're doing, figuring out, trying to fix all that kind of stuff, until we get that out of the way through our breath and through slowing our breath, only then can we start to have images come in. And I remember just sitting there meditating, and all of a sudden I saw this huge bird just starting to fly on my black screen inside my head. And it was the first image I ever got. And it was like, whoa, this is possible. This is real. Like
yeah,
I mean, you hear about people being psychic and getting images, but a lot of people don't understand how it happens. And I think the most important thing for people to realize is everybody has this, gland
I
in
agree.
their third
Yeah,
eye that they can see inner images with. And everybody has this ability when it's opened up, which is so profoundly amazing
right,
once more
right.
people do.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you can use it to get images and messages for yourself, and that's kind of what my guided meditations are for. And to get, sometimes you're at an impasse and you don't know which way to go. Um, and one of the little guided meditations I do is like, well, I don't, say somebody has the decision, I don't know whether to stay into this relationship or go. And so sometimes I'll say, guide somebody into seeing a fork, a fork in the road, ahead of you. So this is sort of future. Now, once you've tuned in, now if I stay here in this relationship, what does this look like? Okay, it looks like I'm seeing a path which looks rocky. I'm getting the infinity sign. Like this, maybe this is never going to end. Maybe this marriage is, or this relationship is so rocky and there's so many disconnects with this partner that this isn't going to be supportive. Let me see what happens when I go to the other side, and so I'll sometimes talk people through so you can get your own, what happens if I go the other route here, or the other possibility for me. So there's so many ways that your spirit guides are just waiting to help you. They really are, but they got to be asked. So that's what I try to teach, just even in the Wise Wednesday meditation that we do every Wednesday at 5:30 on the ISD Facebook page, is some kind of meditation where you're using that connection in meditation for healing, maybe for chronic pain relief, or for just like eventually maybe getting an answer, like where should I go? Let me look at the book of life. I mean, we just try different visualizations to see what are my spirit guides, what am I here for? Sometimes that's people like, what am I, do I have a purpose? What's my purpose? So quite often people start to get involved in this work to answer that question.
Well, and I think for a long time, either through dogma or other pieces, we've been trained to think that this, godly wisdom or higher wisdom is outside of us. And when we open the door and go within, we can have access to it all within. And, we do have shadow aspects to ourselves that will come up, but it's important for them to come up because then we can heal them and see them. And so for those who don't know, Diana is also a minister and a pastor and extremely versed in probably all the world religions and Christianity. And what would you say to those who may not have kind of been exposed to this before and may be thinking it may be more woo-woo? What would you say in response to that? Or that, there, even in some places, I remember hearing, well, if you go in, that's evil and things like that. And what is your response to that? What do you think?
Well, traditional religion at some point, they shut out, I think story says this so well. In the Bible, I think they cut out as many aspects as they could that showed you that you could connect on your own to the divine, and that we needed an intercessor. We needed to have a priest to do that for us. And so the priest, intercessory prayer, somebody else making a prayer to God on your behalf, because maybe God doesn't hear your prayers. And, like we're not supposed to ask on our own behalf, or but we all have that ability to connect into the divine. And I think of the divine as kind of a universal source energy to which we are all connected. All creation starts in this universal source energy. Some traditions would call it God. Some traditions would say Jesus, as the Son of God. Hindus may have different ways of connecting, maybe through a Hindu goddess that's important to them. Buddha, Buddhism. So I guess I think of it as a source energy that we're connecting. We all have the ability to connect, that through the solar plexus, through the crown chakra, maybe. So quite often I'm talking about, at the beginning of a meditation, purposely imagining or visioning you opening that crown chakra that connects to the divine. I remember one time, quite often, we're often, people will stop us and say, what you're doing is evil,
Yeah.
Blah, 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 my minister said that this is bad to connect into, those words, energy, are devil words, and but we're made of energy. We're made
The whole
of
thing
energy.
is energy, right?
So So it's a different way. It's sort of reclaiming yourself as a divine spark of the divine, like that you are a spark. God made you, if you want to think of it in that way. I guess and I think of it in terms of together with God, we made a plan. We all have a plan of some kind, and we have a team. That's why I'm just seeing it as a team. Sorry, I always see it as a circle. All these like people in white robes, in a circle, who are our higher guidance team. That once we become aware and we wake ourselves up to that, oh my gosh, I have a team. I could really achieve everything that I wanted to achieve when I made this plan with my master teacher or team. So these, the spirit guides, etc. We teach about that as well in our intuitive practitioner program. That's, we have a whole course on meeting your spiritual guide team. But again, it can seem pretty woo-woo until you start to have your own images and you're like, oh, I get it now. And so.
And it's life-changing when you do. It really is,
Yeah,
because it
it
connects.
is.
You no longer need it from the outer reality. You now have it within yourself. And that, I mean, that ignites the solar
Yeah.
plexus all by itself.
Yeah,
And,
and that,
yeah,
yeah, I'm
Diana's
sorry,
talking
that
about,
that little, example of just the very first time I went into intuitive training, the very first time I went into the spiritual insight training, and when I asked that woman, are you in a 12-step program? And her face went white and she started to cry. And it was because she's like, how did she know that? How did she know that? And it's like,
nobody did.
like, okay, that proves to me that we do indeed. And I kept saying, I called my sister on the way home, driving home from Omega Institute. And I said, guess what, Sue? There is a God. That's what it, and she was, yeah, so what? No, 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 you don't understand what just happened. It was like this aha moment that, like, I
Yeah.
don't know how I knew. Just somebody dropped this image into my head, and it was exactly what needed to be said for her
Beautiful.
highest good and her
And
well-being.
you're talking about the chakras, and a lot of this comes back to east meets west, right? And the I think the
Yeah,
internet played a big part in that. And a lot of gurus that came over to the United States and started teaching these pieces, and that there's truth in all of these metaphysics of all these world religions that
yeah,
get us to the ultimate truth, if that makes sense.
yeah,
um, and this huge paradigm shift that's happening right now of going within, and it's becoming it's happening. We're seeing it before our eyes. And it reminds me of the two big teachings of Yeshua and Jesus. What he said is that the kingdom is within. He said that. He said the
mm,
kingdom is within, and that we are created in the image. Like you said,
yeah,
we are the one spark. We are an image of the one spark, made to be creators as well. And if we're afraid to go within, it is a bravery to go within, because we see our whole aspect, we see our whole being within, but the most profound healing. And that's part of my shift that I've done. Working in the school, I couldn't bring in the spiritual pieces because of the separation in church and state. But now with my counseling background and working with clients, I'm able to do both. And the healing that occurs when you're guiding somebody in a meditation and they see this profound thing that was so deep in their subconscious they couldn't see it in their everyday life, that is now up to look at and can be healed. And tears do come out, but joy comes out, and everything comes out, because we're finally seeing our whole selves, not just fragments of ourselves.
and
And
you see it as something that you're the driver of this. You're the driver of the of 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 your own future, and you do have the ability. It's suddenly you get it, like, oh, I can change.
mhm,
I can put the changes in that would make my life happier.
yeah,
And I just
exactly.
want to say, the spiritual and intuition, are hand in hand. They come together. And I think somebody can get in trouble when they try to open up their intuition without engaging anything spiritual at all with it, and because you don't know what you're doing, and you may be opening to um, things that you don't want, or the negative energies, etc., that our ministers and priests so often are warning against. It's because somebody may open unsafely, in an unsafe manner. So we teach very much, how do you keep yourself in white light? How do you keep yourself in the highest vibrations always? And so in reopening those gifts, we teach to open safely. So yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of those things that we're afraid of, those energies, are part of our own shadow. And like you said, when we raise our vibration with our breath and through meditation, that's where we go into the divine. That's where we receive divinity, not from the monkey mind beta brain. And ultimately going up to the divine, we are going to receive those higher frequencies and that divine wisdom. And I always say to people,
Different
if you
frequency, yeah.
if you heard something that was scary or not right, then it's not divine, and just keep going. It's not anything that's going to cause you harm.
Yeah.
It's important to have those techniques, and that's why the intuitive practitioner program is so important, because you give those techniques and to do it in a safe way, which is
Yeah,
wonderful.
and when you're asking to be seen from that higher realm, or what Paul Selig calls the upper room,
Yeah.
that place where you are body, mind, soul connected, then there is no wrong. You wouldn't, in that realm, you're not judging the person that you're reading for. There's no judgment. It's, you're kind of seeing things very clearly and from that highest place, not from everyday ego. Yeah.
Right. So somebody who's going to just start this brand new and then do readings for people, it's important to have, cleansed yourself of what's not love before doing that kind
Yeah.
of work, because love will
Right.
love will bring in the love.
Yeah, and we're doing a whole self-care for light workers class right now, two different ones going on, and I realized, man, this is very important to keep yourself as the instrument in good shape,
Yeah.
and all the ways in which you can work with light and energy, and different things to keep yourself pure,
Yeah.
your energy clear. And
And
I don't mean totally pure, like giving up alcohol or giving up,
right.
I don't mean like that. I just mean like energy pure. Yeah.
Well, I think the other shift too is we've been in such a masculine left brain logical side for thousands and thousands of years. And now what's beautiful about the Institute and a lot of the online courses that are happening now for people to start opening their gifts to this is that we're starting to really start to tap into the other side of the brain, the more feminine side that is intuitive, receptive, so that we're no longer having to kind of do, but we're having this be piece and receive divine knowledge and wisdom from within,
Yeah. And
which
how do you
helps us be more
know what's
balanced.
intuitive? Yeah.
Right.
When, how do you know how to follow your gut? And, when you have a gut instinct about something, and, we give people the tools to understand when it's real, when it's not real.
That discernment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So important.
I was going to say, I can either talk about the 9/11, what happened in my calling story, and
Yeah.
I can also just give an example of a
Yeah.
reading.
That'd be great.
Um, so, let's see. I guess I want to give an example of a reading first. Okay, this is
Yeah, it's
just,
so fun to hear these things on how
yeah,
amazing this truly is and how divine it
yeah,
is too, how it's
and
all
yeah.
connected.
So I always ask people not to tell me anything before a reading. So I'm not going into judgment. I'm not going into left brain, trying to understand this person's life, as maybe a counselor would, or a therapist, prior to. I don't want to know. So I don't. It's better if I don't know. Um, so this person who came to me, her daughter had passed away, and I didn't know. Um, I didn't know really. There was a mystery about how she had passed away. And I meditated, and one day, this is before the mom reached out for a reading, actually. And in the meditation, she came to me, and she showed me a Christmas tree and a picture of her diving off the Christmas tree, which, which to me meant, in my system of meaning, that she was doing really well before Christmas, with a past addiction problem, and she took a dive after Christmas. And then the next image was of her bed piled up with mattresses, symbolically, and all the mattresses made of sleeping pills. And I heard, I just want to go to sleep. I just want to go to sleep. And her mom confirmed. I called her mom to tell her about this because she was open. She was open to it. And she confirmed with me after I told her this whole thing that the last words she heard from her daughter when she was trying to check in with her on her cell phone was, "Mom, I just want to go to sleep." And because she knew that she was someone who had emotional ups and downs, and that she knew that if she could just go to sleep, when she woke up, everything would return to normal. So every time she was just trying to sleep, and every time she was trying to sleep through the depressive phase of her emotions, and every time she woke up, she took another sleeping pill. She was taking too much. And it so inadvertently, not on purpose,
Not intentional.
So she wanted me to tell her mom that it was not on purpose. It was it just was an overdose of various drugs mixing together.
Yeah. And what relief that probably brought her. Wow.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of your work, is it touches all different parts of life. It touched relationships, births. If you've predicted pregnancies, for me, you did. There's so many beautiful things that comes from the information when we go within. And I like what you said in the beginning, that, and I agree with this so much, and I teach this, is the connection to your higher self, to be able to get higher wisdom when you might be struggling with something, or sometimes you're just meditating and you get an image and it's like, whoa, that's so helpful. Yes. And it just keeps carrying you forward in such a new, profound way that we didn't have these tools before if we didn't go within. So that's wonderful.
Yeah. Right,
Diana, you talked about your business quite a bit, that tuning in and tuning up, and readings that you've given. Do you want to talk for a minute about the Institute for Spiritual Development? What is it, and how did it start, and what is the mission? What's the goal of it?
Yeah. Okay. So, I've been doing the what we later called the Shift Fair, psychic fair, for about 20. We're into 20, something like 24 years or something, I think, on that.
Wow.
Maybe not that many. I'm sorry. No, wait. We want to go into like probably 18 years. And so I have a wide network of people who do this work through the Shift Fair mailing list. And I know a lot of different people, in this field, in the healing field, as readers, healers of all kinds. And my sister Sue was talking about moving up here from her home in Frederick, and she was attending and had become a minister through the Institute for Spiritual Development in Washington, D.C., and she had gone through their training process. And I said, I wonder, if you move up here, what do you think about trying to start our own chapter of the Institute up here? And eventually it seemed like crazy. It was crazy, but eventually she said yes. And after she moved up here and got settled, we set up an initial interest meeting at the Holiday Inn, and I had 70 people sign up to attend.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. The first thing, like, we just couldn't believe it. People kept coming, the registrations kept coming in. Yes, I'm coming. And there was a big snowstorm the first time. So we ended up having maybe 40 people show up, but it was still a group. It was kind of surprising. And then we held a second one. There was also a snowstorm, and the driving was bad. And, we had maybe 30 people or so show up. And out of that first group, out of the initial, we had a lot of people say, I'd like to I'd like to be a member. I want to be a founding member. So we had a bunch of founding members who helped to start this with us. We got a board out of that group. So we're still operating 5 years later. So 2017, we started planning in 2016, and 2017 March we had our very first service, on the Ides of March, I think it was.
And what's different, real quick, from a metaphysical ISD service to maybe, because you've done both, what's different
Yeah.
from a traditional service?
Well, you might find some of the same things. We have a homily or somebody who's delivering the message for the day. And there's almost always a guided meditation. That's different. Most churches don't do that. So you're feeling that kind of divine connection, hopefully, in every single service. You're feeling that mind, body, spirit rejuvenation in every service. So the first and third service of every month, we have a service which has gone to Zoom during COVID times here. And at the end of the service, you might find a responsive reading. You're hearing prayers, which are very different. They're very metaphysical in nature, the prayers. And there are psychic readings from the ministers at the end of so it's called message bearing. So you may come to a service, and even on Zoom, someone saying, "May I come to you?" and they have a message for you. Okay, so it's really neat that way too. We're connecting in every time. What am I missing? Amanda Hoover, who is now a minister
I
at
think
the
you
Institute for
I think
Spiritual
you covered
Development.
most of it, but I think
Yeah,
one of the most wonderful things that I felt as a minister saying it, and the first time I went to a service hearing it, is welcome home, right?
yeah,
It's kind of like, because when we go up into the higher planes, and sometimes in our dreamscapes, and we just have this feeling of lightness and we're home, when the energy of the beautiful people in the group, even in the Zoom rooms when we're not in person, it's so loving and so unconditional that it feels like home. And it is
yeah,
home. It's a
yeah.
beautiful home that's been created through IST. So, and a beautiful mission. Talk about the mission, Diana. What do you see as the mission of IST?
Um, we are a metaphysical church and school that seeks to, I'm just going to say, kind of connect people to their own divine nature in a loving, supportive community. So you can feel like you have a tribe, while you're doing that, while you're like opening up your spiritual path, and you're searching. You've got a tribe that's doing that with you. Um, one other different thing I would say, you know, when somebody says to me, what you're doing is evil. Like, who are you talking to? How do you know that you're really talking to Jesus? And I say, well, how do you know you're talking to Jesus? How do you know that God is hearing you and your prayers?
Same thing, right?
And the difference is when we pray or we go into meditation, we're learning how to hear the answer. So often, how do you hear the answer? How do you feel the answer? How do you see it in images? And any one of those channels can be reopened. So, clairaudiently, you're hearing a word or a phrase in answer to your prayer, for guidance. You're feeling a yes or a no when you ask a question. It feels right or it feels wrong. And you learn to trust that you're really getting something. You're learning what is that, why am I getting, let's see, we were working with a bicycle as a life meter. Sometimes we work with a bicycle when we're practicing. And how, sometimes I'll get a bicycle when I'm getting a message for myself even. Am I or is the person well seated on the bicycle? It's a life meter. Where's my life going? Am I well seated on it? sometimes someone actually has the bicycle turned upside down and they're trying to replace the tire. Sometimes they've got the bicycle handles backwards, um, or they're pedaling really, really, really hard and they're not getting anywhere. So it's like, do you feel like right now that you're just putting all this effort in, to work and you're just not making any progress? So a metaphor like that will come
Yeah.
in. So,
And these are the
so in other
gifts.
words, you
Oh, sorry, go
get
ahead.
an answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
You go into prayer and you get guidance, you get an answer. So, you didn't need to have that middleman. You didn't need to have the minister or the preacher or whoever pray for you on your own behalf. You're learning how to pray on your own and get an answer.
And if it's not loving, it's not the right answer. And that's the basis of these teachings is you'll know it's the right answer if it's a loving, high answer, a high vibrational answer.
Yeah.
And these are the exact gifts that the spiritual masters and spiritual teachers had and used and were teaching throughout history all over the planet, that we're now saying it's not just for certain people, it's for everyone. It's like, we always go back to that. It's not just for the 1%, it's for everyone. Abundance for everyone, and everyone can open to their gifts and their worth and their beautiful dreams and journey, and having support and guidance from their higher self from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And ISD has a church board and bylaws that are followed nationally, and so that we're compliant with state and federal regulations,
Yeah.
just like any other church.
And chartered, yeah.
Yeah.
And the unique part about the institute is the institute name of it, and the classes part of it, because, and I give so much credit to you and all the work that you've done for this, in Oneana, is creating an entire, some of these are like college level classes and programs that are being offered to
Yeah.
people, that they can access. It's not just sitting in a Sunday service. Now we're going to teach you the techniques, so that you can have these pieces for yourself, not only to become a healer, but also to progress your intuitive abilities even further.
Yeah.
And so many different classes are offered
Oh,
beyond
and
that.
yeah, more about mission. They just reminded me, I was just simply using these gifts for myself. Like I had to write an article or something for work, and I would tune in and say, what should I write about? And it works. It really works, just for everyday guidance, and also for my kids is what I was going to say. They would always come and ask, and they still do. What do you see around blah blah blah, and I could tune in for them and give them some guidance, which was helpful.
You mentioned using our gifts. We use our gifts when we're putting the services together too. And
Yes.
we've created such this beautiful group mind, and we keep saying Story's name. She's going to be on one of these podcasts with me coming up here soon.
Yeah.
Story's one of our ministers, very, very wise, 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 divine feminine. And she is so good at teaching about group mind, and that when we're all in a room meditating together, we will often get messages for each. We'll get one message, but we realize that we all can resonate with it, and we all needed it at that time. And the divine energy, just kind of our higher selves, know to support us with what we receive, so that we all can have a profound experience of unity consciousness together. And that's where I see us going as a planet. And the more we open up to these higher planes together, the more we can understand how we are all one. We are all that spark, just in little different fractals off of each other. So
Yeah.
the work that's being done through the Institute, and I know these pieces are popping up all over the planet right now, and the Institute is growing as well. We have you want to talk about the other chapters at this point, how many there are?
Yeah. I think we have 4 other chapters. So Washington D.C., Sparta, New Jersey, um, Madison, New Jersey,
And Treasure
and
Coast.
ISD Treasure Coast, I think, are the active ones right now. So we're
Yes.
we're one of 5, I believe, right
Yeah.
now.
So it's exciting to see where this goes. And I think we hear the overall mission is just to, number one, help evolve the consciousness, help people to resonate with love even more, because that's going to heal everything and everyone, and have it help to facilitate for others, not to do for them, but to help facilitate for them to create their own direct divine connection so that they can heal themselves and support themselves without feeling that need to constantly go outside of themselves, but also
Right.
having a beautiful community where if you do need help, you can reach out and ask for it. So,
Right, right.
yeah.
And we're starting the intuitive practitioner program January 6th,
Yeah.
with a free orientation. So you
You
can
want,
come and see
yeah.
if it's for you. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about really quick your very popular and wonderful, I love it so much, your New Year's Eve kind of celebration that you do?
Oh, sure. On that Saturday, the 8th of January, we have a New Year's spiritual retreat, which we've done for years, and we've adapted it to Zoom. So the fun of this event is that you're actually burning the regrets that you have from the year, anything that you know. Um, things that you want to create forgiveness for or whatever, you're just burning your regrets and creating intentions for the new year in a very special guided meditation. You're actually planting the seeds for what you want to have happen in your new year. And as part of that, also, when we're done with all of the fun exercises, and you get some paperwork, you get homework to do before you join in, but doing it in this very powerful ceremony, saying goodbye and completion, asking your spirit guides to help you work with that, and God to help you work with closing those chapters that you want to close, and being ready to welcome in the new, plant the seeds, and get them to start growing. Yeah,
Oh,
ritual and ceremony.
yeah, I want to tell you, many years ago, um, we did a meditation. You did a meditation, and it was planting the seeds of the intentions. And I did it. And not only did it come true exactly the way I intended it at that meditation, but I had planted the seeds up in my backyard, in the higher planes, though, not physically planting the seeds in my
Yeah.
backyard. And that spring, these beautiful, gorgeous white flowers that were not there the year before came up in that area. And I walked by and I just had the tears rolling down my face, because it's just that, this is so much more magical than
Oh,
we've ever
wow.
given it credit for, this beautiful
Yeah.
Gaia planet Earth. And when
Wow.
we do have those intentions in the higher planes and we ground them in the energetic way, it is we are energy. You said it in the beginning, right? It's the energetic frequency that we're creating to magnetize our reality to us. So it was
Yeah.
just wonderful. I wanted to share
Ah,
that.
exciting. Yeah.
All right, Diana, I won't keep you too much longer. We've had a wonderful, wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing all those insights and the really great way to, I thought you were really describing, that term psychic that gets such a woo-woo connotation to it, but it's not. It's intuition, it's connection with everything, the planet, the divine, humanity. It's so much bigger than all these old stories and these old paradigms ever gave it credit for. And we're finally stepping into some of that ancient wisdom that was there, that was kind of covered up for so, so long. So
Yes. Yes.
thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. Okay, you too.
Thanks, everybody.